potentially.
Oh, he's got Vander.
Evo's going to dash away, body slam connects. Oh, look at the flash into the barrel. There's no tower to fall back to, though. Exhaust for exhaust in the culling. Power reveal puts a lot of damage down. Almost wins in the 1v2. Maxlaw turns it around. Teleport comes out for Alfari. He's caught inside the baby cage. Getting burned and roasted and cut down by Olawamne. The Glacial Fisher prevents Maxlaw going in, but the entrance knocks up two. Alfari's not done. Now he is. Olawamne kills him. And Summer's caught out up with the exhaust. Puts the damage and the feathers out. Ashe into the face.
Oh, he's gonna kill him.
Summer goes down. Everybody's dying. Ignore gets tagged. H2K are acing Misfits.
We just talked about it.
In 200 gold, I'm out of control.
The man himself, Yanko as well. The man himself would be Olawamne because he definitely won you guys that game, but
For like 20 minutes we fail everything, but we have one good play, and then, you know, they lose the whole team fight because of it. You could feel they are shaking the chair, you know?
Like, we have Infernals now and everything, so like, I don't think we can lose a fight, but don't be over cocky.
Oh, Sjokz, no flash.
Gonna get jumped on, no flash, as you say. Here they come, all of Rocket. Just appear from thin air.
We changed our jungler, and that's pretty important position to fill in, you know. We as players are not scared of any team right now. We weren't last season. We could beat every team, you know. We could beat G2, who has had like almost the perfect split, so we don't have like that mindset of being scared.
welcome to week 6 of the summer split. After a tough loss to the LCS at Rift Rivals, the European teams return for the finishing weeks of summer. Starting today with Vitality versus Ninjas in Pyjamas, as well as H2K versus Rocket. Loving that intro video, everyone looking hyped there as well. Vitality, Marocan, he's always still giving the speeches, and there they were. Oh, it's a time warp. There was when the Djoko and his crew were arriving.
Are you telling him this is not live?
No, because that would be a very short
arrived
turnaround.
and they're running on stage.
They're running on stage. No, that's not the case. Obviously, they had some time to set up to what is a very important matchup today, and the return of the EU LCS to the stage. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sjokz supporter, following the action alongside Martin Deficio Lunga. So, first up, obviously, Rift Rivals, huge disappointment for the side of EU. We're not making any excuses,
nope.
But how should we then look at the other teams that are going to play here, and also the teams that played at Rift Rivals?
Well, obviously, we should be disappointed. The fans should be disappointed as well. The team should be. I just think now, though, we have the situation where some of our teams, their playstyles have been exposed a little bit. So it's kind of crazy in Europe, because I feel like almost every team then can try and actually do what the North American teams did against like a Fnatic or Unicorns of Love, and see if it works for them and maybe spice things up quite a bit. So I definitely feel like the games will be very exciting, despite us losing, obviously, at Rift Rivals. So there might be some people being a little bit down on Europe.
Well, the other teams, as you say, should take the opportunity to look at how the NA teams dismantled Fnatic and Unicorns of Love in G2 and try to beat them themselves. Let's take a look at the standings to see where those possibilities are. Obviously, the top teams like Fnatic and the Unicorns of Love, and then G2 in third. We have to take it with a grain of salt now, but we also have to say if they were able to beat all those teams before, they might be able to still do it. So who are we looking at? The Splices of this world, obviously. Misfits to be able to upset them. Yeah,
teams like Splice and Misfits for sure should be able to learn a lot from Rift Rivals, because they didn't have to show anything. They've had now 2 weeks to practice as well, and kind of maybe figure out, okay, what is it TSM did that was so good against Unicorns of Love? Can we do the same? Obviously, again, it's not the same players, but the playstyle can maybe fit. And H2K as well might actually be the biggest winner of the European teams that, of course, didn't go to Rift Rivals, because they are currently challenging Unicorns of Love, Fnatic for that best team in Europe slot, and they didn't have to show anything. They've just had time to practice, and I'm actually pretty high on the H2K hype train and also the Vitality hype train.
You've been talking about it all day. So tell the viewers, why are you so excited about Vitality?
So first of all, I think they look pretty good week 5 before Rift Rivals even started, where they got that 2-0 victory over Rocket. And then I look at his lineup and I'm like, Nukeduck is playing out of his mind. And that's important right now, because we've seen how good mid laners, you know, what they can do, how they can snowball the game.
Best EU mid?
Best EU mid, potentially caps second place, all that kind of stuff. But I also think like a guy like Cabochard is actually looking better and better up in the top lane compared to what we've seen like the last year. And that gives me a lot of hope for Vitality because Yamato kind of is a guy teaching the basics in the early game. And with more time, I think we're going to see them shine. I think they're going to look good today, and I think they're going to show a lot here the next few weeks.
They also had a week to rest. They had a week to review their games from before that. And if we take a look back at the rest of week 5, most of the top teams, they still got the job done. The Unicorns of Love, H2K, G2, and Fnatic, they all won their series. But, well, this is Vitality.
Look at that hype.
Fantastic hype. Nukeduck on the Corki on game 1. He had the Kog'Maw. He slaughtered everyone. So that is definitely the case. If we look at the other matches, though, the top teams, as we said, Unicorns of Love beat NIP but dropped the game. The H2K won, but they came back from a huge deficit in the early game. So do you feel that we ignored some of the signs of the top teams maybe not being as good before Rift Rivals?
Well, one of the things about Unicorns of Love was we kind of used to them dropping games here and there and sometimes being a bit inconsistent. So it wasn't like a huge warning sign in terms of them underperforming. It was more always the problem with their playstyle that they could drop these games, that they never had the clean early games. Like NIP obviously got a massive goal lead against them, just like we saw NA teams do at Rift Rivals. So that was more like, well, this is how they're playing the game. I just think the North American teams obviously showed that if you are actually good at closing out games, Unicorns never get a chance to get back in. And that was something that European teams can't just like copy because they've obviously shown in the past that they do struggle against Unicorns of Love's play style. Same thing with Fnatic, it's easy to sit back or say now, oh yeah, style, easy. Just,
no, because before we said they keep winning with it, so it's fine.
Exactly, like I think as casters got a little bit complacent with some of our top teams and the one play style they had, we said they keep winning, there clearly is no answer from the European teams.
It's hard to argue with victories, of course.
It's hard to then say why the European team's not doing this one specific thing. I just think the North American team showed good things against them, and that's why we're now kind of tracking Unicorns, Fnatic, and G2 and how they improve. But that's also kind of a cool thing because we've been here before. We lost at MSI last year. It was horrible. Everyone said Europe was garbage, and then we actually came back much stronger. And I think the same thing can happen here.
Hopefully the same comes into effect now, and we can stand to be a bit more judgmental of those playstyles even in victories. And, well, the first matchup today will be NIP versus Vitality, and I know that you're very excited to see Vitality kick off the week. And then H2K versus Rocket. And, tomorrow is also so spicy. G2 versus Splice and Unicorns of Love versus Misfits. Where are those teams, G2 and Unicorns of Love? I'm so excited to see what they will have brought to the Rift.
Yeah, I think Unicorns are going to look kind of the same as what we've seen before, because I think they're just going to try and fix the early game without drafting that differently. G2 though, like we need to see that old G2 just return very soon, otherwise we have to kind of start really being very concerned. Hopefully after Rift Rivals, where some of the players were tweeting about how they've had big talks, now they're changing stuff, hopefully that is what they need, and if they go in and beat Splice, they do make a statement.
That is tomorrow, but I'm excited about all the matchups. It's time to get back into the action here in the LCS, so let's send it over to our casters for Game 1.
Thank you very much, Sjokz. And hello, all you esports fans out there. I'm Devin, PiraTechnics Young, and I'm joined here by my main man, James Stress O'Leary. How you doing?
Ready to get back into the action.
Absolutely.
It's week 6 of the EU LCS, and we've got Vitality and Ninjas in Pyjamas ready to take to the Rift.
Oh, yeah, we've been waiting all week for this one. Let's go ahead and check out our team starting out today. On the blue side in game number 1, it will be Vitality. And when this team takes on the Rift, there is one name you have got to say over and over again. It's Nukeduck.
Exactly. He is playing phenomenally right now for Vitality and was a big part of why Vitality beat Rocket 2-0. The Analyst has touched on his Kog'Maw, a lane matchup into that Corki because it scales a little bit quicker into the game if given the space in the laning phase. And Vitality using that very well. Nukeduck picking up so many kills throughout the game. And realistically, if this Vitality keeps showing up, it could be on the upward trend.
Oh, yeah. And not only did he take that Kog'Maw out for the first time of the split, take it for a spin, but his Corki was fantastic in the next game as well. So really big props to Nukeduck showing up, veteran player, but honestly coming up big in these series. Now going up against them today, on the other side of the Rift is going to be the Ninjas in Pyjamas. And on their side, they're definitely looking to grow as well, but the man we've had our eyes on has been Sprattel.
Yeah, down in that bottom lane, he was an instrumental part of their first game win, Pyra.
They broke the streak.
Ninjas in Pyjamas, pick up a game win up against the Unicorns of Love, and it was all from playing through the early game. The Thresh from Sprattel, realistically setting up so many picks early on, allowed them to establish these gold leads against the Unicorns of Love. And look at this. Look at the amount that NIP were ahead. All they've got to do is figure out how to close the game, because these were the types of leads North American teams were beating the Unicorns with at Rift Rivals. So Nips certainly can set themselves up in the game. Now they need to carry it across the finishing line.
Absolutely. It's been a long time, honestly, since we've had some hope for a team that is so down in the bottom of the standings, but they have themselves a chance to pick up a win today against Vitality, who are also growing. But honestly, it looks like these teams could be pretty close to one another, and I'm expecting to see some real big action. If they can grow the leads early enough, obviously it's going to be hard to overcome for either side who falls behind.
Right, and now we get into the territory where we look at the time off now. It's difficult to tell exactly the level coming into the first game back for these two teams because NIP were on the rise, Vitality were on the rise. Who managed to rise further within the week of Rift Rivals? Should be a very exciting matchup.
Well, hopefully they don't pick Rise. I'm tired of seeing him. Enough with Exile stuff. But anyways, we're into picks and bans. We got the Kalista coming out first for Vitality.
Another pick that I'm a little bit sick of seeing, I don't really want to see Steelback on, is this Jhin. And you could look at some of these stats and say, hey, look, he didn't die. He was involved in so many team fights, 84% kill participation. Well, look at his damage percent. Super low for an AD carry. Low damage, 46% less than a Jhin on average. So if Vitality pick it up, that's one thing we've got to watch because there's already 2 AD carry bans coming through. Kalista banned by Vitality, Caitlyn banned by Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Absolutely, but you also follow through with the Zac, the Elise. Those are taken off the board and they turn their attention towards the top side with the Gnar.
Which is an interesting one because coming into Rift Rivals, Gnar was only seen in 18% of European games. It was seen 53% more games in Rift Rivals when you look at it. A massive increase in priority on this top lane pick for the North American and EU LCS team. So seemingly something that maintains the trend here was very difficult to deal with. And off the table goes the Jhin. We don't have to worry about the damage.
I mean, I wonder if honestly that does Vitality a favor because last week with those damage numbers, we were seeing Steelback kind of go back to the old Steelback. What happened to the guy that was getting down and dirty the week before?
Well, we need to talk about a Rumble first pick coming out here. Because Rumble, not always first pick, but with Gnar off the table already from Vitality, that now puts that up in top lane contention. It's one of the better matchups that normally would be played against the Rumble. Of course, that does, however, open up the Rek'sai, open up the Thresh. Keep in mind, Thresh was first pick just about every single time it was available over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, we were highlighting this being a massive pick for Sprattel in particular, and he is going to get his chance on it one more time. So alongside the Rek'sai, Ninjas in Pyjamas got themselves set up for some picks.
So we'll see where the Vitality trend more towards team fighting now, because that is something they were good at in the previous week, in week 5, utilizing this Olaf and this Tahm Kench. I'm happy to see this come from Vitality. This is a composition that is set around grouping with the Tahm Kench, teleporting in with the Rumble, and getting that Olaf into the backline, get the damage down, and get people out of the fight early on.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a Vitality classic, and we'll see what Ninjas in Pyjamas can draft up against it. Looking for a strong top lane, and it is going to be the Renekton.
Right, and the reason for this Renekton, obviously you want the early laning phase, you'll have the lane dominance over in the side lane, will control the side lane against Rumble pretty much for the entire game. So Nip drafting for a laning phase, which is something, again, we saw in Rift Rivals work very well. When you drafted early, you were able to put the enemies behind, and that's what Nip have been doing against the Unicorns. They drafted laning phase and got a lead in all 3 games.
Question is, can they do it up against Vitality? Now, we are in the second phase of bans, and it's going to start hitting the AD carry pool again. Bars comes off the table.
We're likely to see Ashe go away here, and we're delving very deep into champion pools. You got to look for these guys. I mean, Steelback, he realistically only has the Twitch and the Xayah that remain as AD carries that he's played if that Ashe does go. Mid lane, we look at now, Cassiopeia, one of those scaling mid laners. Does very well at denying some of the fights that Vitality would want to set themselves up for as well when you put that grounded area down. Want to try and deny any comfortable matchups here for Nagne. But look, Galio is still available in this draft. Hasn't been taken away at all.
Yeah, another AD carry ban ends up being the Twitch removed, so they really are focusing on Steelback. And we'll see what Vitality end up spending their last ban on. I'm not so sure about this one.
Well, at this point, it's Xayah and Ashe are the last remaining AD carries this split that Steelback has played. Of course, we know he can play the likes of a Sivir. Tristana is another one we're expecting to see a whole lot more of, which might be the first pick coming out from Ninjas in Pyjamas. It has a decent laning phase. It has good tower pushing potential and great scaling into the game as well.
Yep. Oh, the Kog'Maw ban away. So Nukeduck doesn't want to give anyone else a chance at that champion.
This is basically a trade saying that if you do take something like a Tristana here, if you don't prioritize Corki, maybe we'll take it for the mid lane. It worked so well for us in Game 2 last week against Roccat. Maybe that's where Vitality look to go.
All right, so with the seconds ticking away, it looks like Ninjas are going to opt for that strategy indeed. And we'll see if Vitality answer on the Corkster. would not be too surprised. Nukeduck made that champion look oh so good.
And there's still other AD carries, the Lucian, the Ashe that we talked about a little bit, the Xayah as well.
I mean, Kaelin's up, but you know.
No, Kaelin was banned in first rotation by Nip. I mean, there would be like 5
There are a lot of AD
right?
carries off the table, but I think the Ashe makes a lot of sense, right? It is a system in being able to start fights. It does do a lot of damage in the later stages of the game, and it does fit right into a Vitality comp.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It allows them to engage easily across the map. Now, do they go laning phase with a Syndra, a LeBlanc that can roam as well? Or do you go full roam, full later game potential with the Corki that we did start seeing? Or do you go safe with an Orianna? There's lots of things you can do.
Or you could go mid Lucian.
Or you could go mid Lucian and basically just pick it here. It does have a good matchup into the Corki as well, so it denies some of what NIP maybe would have been looking for. Orianna also not the best matchup into the Lucian. Generally, Lucian can control both of them, but it's not so significant that Corki auto loses here. If you pick up the Corki, you just basically, or the Orianna, you're waiting for the later game to scale.
But we're going to go ahead and get a Nagne special. Talking about roaming, he picks up his Taliyah. Pretty much one of the most played champions for Nagne, right up there with the Corki this split.
The Lord of the Pit, Nagne, looking to reassume control of his kingdom here.
We'll see how far the game gets for sure. Ninjas of Pyjamas still needing to pick up a win. They had a crucial game victory to snap the losing streak, but unfortunately weren't able to take down the mighty Unicorns before Rift Rivals. We'll see if they can beat Vitality here today.
So looking at the compositions overall, Vitality, Tahm, Kench, Ashe, engage potential, team fighting around that Rumble as well. Decent damage, and then we'll see what Nukeduck can get done when he's looking to go out to the side lane and come back in. Maybe we'll see Vitality even group on the side lane here if they can find somebody. Bring Tahm, Kench, bring the Olaf to assist Nukeduck. On the other side, you got tower potential when you bring a Taliyah over with the Tristana as well, the Thresh alongside. Decent skirmish still from Nip as well. You got to watch out those bottom lane fights.
Yeah, the early game is definitely going to be spicy for both teams. It's the way that they like to play it out. So we could be in for some serious action early on, and it's up to you guys on Twitter to see who you think is going to come out ahead. Don't forget to hop on there at LOL Esports is the place and tweet out hashtag VIT win or NIP win, depending on who you believe is going to take the victory. Both teams down in the standings, needing as many wins as they can get. And this is one of the more manageable matchups we are likely to see, especially in the half weeks of cross-group play, the back half, I should say. We'll see how it all goes down, and I'm really expecting a whole lot of early action, especially out of the NIP team if they want to try and shut down Vitality, who are looking oh so much better. The fans are excited. We are ready to rock and roll on the Rift for week 6 of the European LCS.
And of course, NIP running out of opportunities like this that you were talking about, how important it is in cross-group play to take games off the other bottom half of the table teams. And of course, NIP still without a series win. Picking up a game win against Unicorns is nice, but it doesn't get them any closer to staying in the league. This is one of the most critical games they're going to have, all split long.
Yep, remember before the Unicorn series, they actually had lost out to the Mysterious Monkey, so everyone else in the standings they've already had a crack at. Vitality are looking to start this one off heavy, though. All 5 members on an invade spotted out by Sjokz, which means NIP are going to be able to get some free wards down on the bottom side.
Yeah, at this point, just wanting to see whether that Rek'sai is starting off on the Raptor camp. Seen a couple of different starts, a couple of different early, you know, with the experienced Quints, you can go aggressive into the lane on level 3 early on. But just trying to scout out for any starts that would put someone like a Nukeduck in trouble.
Vitality definitely taking the team fight mentality all the way through, though, with that 5-man stack. Obviously, it's a little bit of cheese, but you know they're retreating back into the brushes and not going to be starting on the Raptor camp to kick things off.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, nobody necessarily gets those early game 5v5s, but what Vitality do is they group on the bottom side. Look at where Vander and Steelback are poised. This is for one of these quote-unquote super leashes that people were talking about a whole lot, where Olaf starts on the Raptors, you move down towards the red buff that was already started off by the bottom lane, and then they actually head back. But they didn't end up taking any damage from the red buff, and the reason is Sprattel and HeaQ were already in lane in the bottom lane and moved out into the wave. They cannot afford to lose this experience, otherwise Tristana Thresh has a surprising amount of damage and engage potential level 2. If Vander doesn't have that Devour, you very easily lose out a trade early on.
Yeah, I don't want to give that advantage up for the opposing bottom lane as we kick off that laning phase here between the two of them.
So that's going to make it a little tougher for Djoko here. Obviously, drops lower off the red buff, having to tank it all up himself. A little bit lower on the mana is one of the important ones, because Olaf is a mana-hungry jungler, typically likes to start up on the top side for that blue buff, and this is where Sjokz has the potential of going aggressive, because he knows Djoko is going to either be out of mana or out of health. If Djoko can secure the blue buff for now, it might be enough that Sjokz can't take him on fully. And Djoko knows.
Just send the Praise Seeker. So Djoko's able to secure up both of his buffs. Sjokz started for the full clear on the top side and hadn't gone back to the bottom. But Djoko definitely needs a little bit of time, right? Olaf is one of his special kind of signature champions. He loves to play this guy to set up fights, to get into the backline, as you talked about in the pick and ban. This is what they want for the later stages of the game. He doesn't have to get in and start ganking. Right. Start things off. He's
got a bit of a tough time in this game, though, because HeaQ, of course, will have that rocket jump available during most of the fights, so it's unlikely that NIP are going to be able to, or sorry, Vitality and Djoko will be able to take down the carries of NIP that easily in a fight. But that's where the rest of Vitality come in. Look, you've got a lot of damage that'll come from the Lucian, from the Rumble. This isn't a team composition that is meant to get these early leads and hold them throughout the entire game. They can, but certainly up against the likes of a Renekton, can be difficult for this Rumble to output a lot of presence, but already being good up in that top lane.
Yeah. But that's also a comfortable pick for Cabochard, right? Like, we've seen him play a lot of this champion as of recent, because this is the style that they want to fit into on Vitality. It seems like Yamato Cannon's kind of having this effect on the team, pushing and pushing and pushing for this certain play style that they are starting to get pretty good at.
Yeah, they're getting a lot better at this. The grouping playstyle had a good opportunity to talk to Yamato Cannon last week when he was on the Analyst test, or 2 weeks ago, if you'll excuse me. Time is difficult. Talking about how the mentality of grouping is. It's working better. However, early game trade for now.
Yeah, Djoko's gone for a ghost here. Nukeduck is incoming, dashes forward, relentless pursuit, sends out his W, but Nagne is there to stop it up, and there will be no first blood here.
Sjokz on the rough end of a lot of that trade. Now, he knew there wasn't many camps on the bottom side jungle for him to take in his own jungle, so he tries to go aggressive into the enemy jungle, and then realizes, oh, I actually can't do too much against an Olaf this early on. I'm only Rek'sai, and that's a bad trade when you're already behind. So Djoko getting the better of that exchange.
Yeah, that's great for Djoko, as he does want to buy a little bit more time. For NIP, talked about their gold leads, how they were able to get an early setup against the likes of the Unicorns of Love. You got to think they're going to be trying to do the same thing, because they have the ability to push onto towers, to dive early on. But so far, Sjokz has kind of not been able to set up a whole lot successfully.
Right, and it's going to get more difficult if he tries to take those trades again, because look, Djoko goes, okay, skirmish the Saber. This is all we need in the jungle. I'm going to have this added damage trading with you. And considering his top lane is pushing, his mid lane is pushing right now, this is actually a good setup for Vitality as we're cresting the early part of the game here. Just past 5 minutes, nobody's got their ultimate yet. That's going to be one of those big points that we're expecting a fight, but that might be one top lane here. Sjokz waiting around, doesn't know that Djoko is here, though.
Both junglers on, they look for Cabochard. There's a stun up, but in comes Djoko. Can they finish the job? But it's first blood. Prophet goes down to the axe of Djoko, and Sjokz is isolated from the rest of the team now, as he has to burn his flash to get out, but that's level 6, which means the red carpet is down, and Sjokz is as well. Cabochard picking up a kill.
Getting the level 6 off the first blood through the top lane. 2 kills go to Vitality. That's a great start for Vitality. We talked about how Prophet seemed to be struggling, how Sjokz couldn't hang on through the beginning of the game, and Vitality on the board already.
This is disaster for NIP when you think about where NIP want to put their resources. When they've had success, it has been investing in Prophet, getting him ahead early. Well, guess what? He's down a kill. He's down 10 CS now.
Yes, this is going to be a real tough game, because there's Renekton playing from behind, especially against a team-fighting top laner that basically is going to have this massive impact. Cabochard flashes out at the end. Was a little afraid of Sjokz, but at this point, look, Djoko's got so much damage through the skirmisher's Saber, through just his entire kit here. Lands the axe, easy kill. Vitality come out with 2 kills here.
Yeah, it's going to give them 1,000 gold advantage at the 6-minute mark.
And there's a curious thing with Vitality and gold advantages, Pyra. Professor Pyra, I need you to come with me here as I'm Detective
Stress. Tell me this.
Yeah. So between 10 and 15 minutes, Vitality hemorrhage their gold leads. To put it in perspective, at 10 minutes, 8 out of the 13 games, they have a lead. That's great.
Interesting.
At 15 minutes, they only have a lead in 2. What is going on I have a feeling it's that Vitality went ahead, overextend. Let's keep our eyes on this game. Steelback on Vander as well. You saw they nearly got a pick off there in that bottom
was quite
lane.
close. But very interesting observation there, Detective. We will see as the game proceeds where that gold lead ends up going, or if Vitality are able to keep it. For the time being, they're on track.
For now, it's a good start up on the top side. Now I want to see where Steelback and Vander end up going. A lot of the things that Vitality do is swap up to the top side early on, look for tower first blood, and press an advantage. Now that isn't where Steelback and Vander are going right now, but Vander is heading towards the mid side. I think they're anticipating a play.
Nagne face checks right into Djoko. Unfortunate timing means he's got to burn his own flash to get away.
Yeah, you can see they were anticipating a play from Sjokz around the mid lane, and that is a flash being burned from Nagne. As Vitality just continuing to extend this lead.
Absolutely. Now, we talked about Vitality's gold leads and how those tend to disappear sometimes. But what we hadn't talked about just yet is what NIP have been able to accomplish in recent weeks, because it's been such a massive level of growth for them, even though this game they find themselves down.
Yeah, you can see weeks 4 and 5, big increase. And remember, that includes the Unicorn series, but this fight is more important right now. Prophet again, top.
Oh no, and he's already burned his flash, and Cabochard's able to char him down. Sjokz is late to the scene of the crime.
Yeah, once again, Vitality putting the emphasis on Prophet here, on a champion that is so reliant on having a dominant laning phase. Vitality working very well through Cabochard on the top lane, and Djoko has been in the right place at the right time and hasn't been making some of these early game mistakes that started creeping into Vitality's gameplay the last few weeks. But hang on, teleport coming through. Prophet looking to get back into the action.
They want to try to get some gold back for themselves and save the tower, so Sjokz is already going in to start things up, but they are going to be able to nearly take him down before the fight has even started. All in all, it's a 1-for-1, but Cabochard finding himself at odds with the rest of NIP as Nagne claims a kill.
Yep, Nagne managing to roam up with the Weaver's Wall. Vitality overextend to the top tower, trying to rush it down for tower first blood. It's a little bit earlier than the 10-minute mark, but these are the kind of errors that Vitality have had creeping into their play, that they get ahead and it looks like they just overestimate what they can do. They don't respect teleports and roam plays from the enemies, and that makes it very difficult. Look, this teleport comes out early on. Cabochard and Djoko commit to taking this tower down, and then they think they can take out Sjokz. Sjokz manages to dodge a lot of the damage and stay alive for a little bit longer, just long enough so that the rest of the team can arrive and pick up 2 kills. But that's the kind of mistake that Vitality don't need to make in this game.
No, you're right, and this is the overextension, a little bit what you're talking about. It's happening in the top lane as opposed to in the bottom, but for NIP, they're still losing out on some of this damage and some of this pressure from Prophet, because he is always the win condition on those side lanes and finds himself down a significant amount of gold versus what Cabochard has. Meanwhile, a little bit of a trade in the mid lane. Djoko was a little late to try and finish off Nagne.
But looking at what NIP can do, we've talked about how top lane maybe doesn't work out so well if they're so far behind, but look, this Tristana, we've seen do very well late game. Now they want to play around Tristana. Double knock-up.
There we go. Hook not going to go the way that Sprattel was trying to predict, but he is able to get a flayback, flashing Steelback, getting under tower range, and even Vander's going to live. It was a nice attempt by NIP.
Of course, it's changed so that you can only knock up one champion, but if Tahm Kench has devoured him, counts as a double knock-up, kind of, right? You get
2 for 1. You get 2 for 1.
It's
It's a special. Hey, but all that's happening, though, Vitality do knock down the top tower.
Right.
They're keeping this gold lead going.
Yeah,
and now
exactly.
we start that timer. Are we going to see that evaporate?
Yeah, we're in that 5-minute window. It doesn't happen every time, Pyra, but certainly it has happened enough to start wondering about. But this is the kind of play that I like to see Vitality making, is they play defensively on the bottom side with the Tahm Kench. It's why I think it's such a good pick for Vander, is it has a second facet to it, which we will see soon from Vitality. Defensive play in lane, aggressive play on the map once those lanes are open.
Absolutely. So we've seen 1 tower knockdown already. We'll see if the dual lane on Vitality's side will start to take that out onto the map a little bit more. And that's how Vitality have been able to accrue and keep these gold leads going in their successful games. But, you know, we haven't really touched as much on Nukeduck this game because he's in a champion matchup that is a little bit less exciting, I think, than we expected. The Lucian kind of tends to be okay in lane, but Nagne's never the guy that wants to 1v1 you.
Well, not anymore. he used to be.
Yeah, that was back in Korea. It's okay.
All the way back in the Najin days. But realistically, you're talking about Nukeduck. on a more quote-unquote orthodox pick. It has similar reasons for being in the champion pool that the Kog'Maw we saw last week does. You know, it's AD-based, earlier scaling, good kind of dual potential out on the side lane. You can push lanes very quickly. So that's what Nukeduck will end up becoming, but we're only really going to see that when Steelback and Vander swap up towards the middle lane. We see Nukeduck go out on the side lane and then come back and forth with the team. So right now is not necessarily his time to shine. He is about a wave of CS up, though.
Yeah, that's true. Got to give him some credit for there, but it's just not the same style of champion I think that we might have expected to see him on in this Vitality super comp that they always try to build up, with him being the major damage dealer, just going off on everybody. Instead, as you said, it's a little bit more side lane control, a little bit more utility.
And certainly they won't necessarily need to look to him for damage. I'm sure he'll still output it here, as Cabochard is really the one that they're playing through in this game. Steelback, we talked a little about him earlier in the day. He's going to basically just need to fire arrows and hit people, and that's fine as long as he does that. That's realistically all Vitality needs. So don't be surprised if his damage number is low again, because realistically, the champion he's on, he can kind of afford to do that with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of what Steelback generally ends up doing. Yeah. He stays relatively safe. He rarely dies, with the exception of a few weeks ago.
But then he put massive damage numbers out. He played Twitch, he died a few times, but really destroyed their opponents in team fighting.
But overall, what Vitality managed to do is establish pretty good control of the top side of the map. They got the Rift Herald as well. And NIP are honestly just not able to react in time. This gold gap is widened. Well, 3,000 now.
One thing I like that NIP are doing is their vision control on bottom side, trying to keep this Ashe, this Tahm Kench under tower so that Tahm Kench can't roam. Tahm Kench is level 8 and we haven't seen an Abyssal Voyage come out yet. That's kind of rare that you don't see those aggressive plays. So while NIP are behind, that is something to give them a little bit of credit for. They're trying to play around some of this style because, look, Teleport's still down for Cabochard. There is no way of Vitality making one of these grouping plays without it horribly backfiring. So I like what NIP are doing at the same time.
Yeah, that's very true. But we'll have to check in with a few items right now because we're starting to finally see some of the spikes coming in.
Yep.
The Lucian Blade of the Rune King is already completed up in the top side. Cabochard, pretty big gold influx for him considering all the attention that happened earlier on. He's got his Leandri's Torment at 14.5 minutes. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. It's all over on the other side as well. HeaQ likely to be going the Infinity Edge Static Shiv route. That's what we saw a lot. Someone is really hyped for Infinity Edge Static Shiv.
Dude, those things clear minions fast.
It does.
You think you've seen Tristana wave clear? Not till she's got a Static Shiv and IS.
The old Hurricane was pretty good as well.
I mean, it was fun when you could proc everything all together, right? But that was another reason for playing the Kennen.
I have a feeling it was about the ward more than anything. Oh.
Ooh, nice dodge,
okay,
Djoko.
well,
not even sure if you saw that hook.
This is with half a minion wave, so I feel like it was about to expire for Djoko, so they want to get some damage down here, but without a minion wave, they bring Vander in. It's 4 members of Vitality pushing forward. They won't get the tower from this, but it's kind of one of those use it or lose it moments. I'm not sure exactly on the timing left, but certainly had been a while since they picked it up.
I think they're going to be able to do this. The Ashe Arrow does split the uprights, but it's just enough for Vitality to finish off the tower. That's number 2.
And we talked about how Vitality hadn't had a chance to utilize the Abyssal Voyage from the bottom lane or didn't have the teleport from Cabochard. Well, they only needed to bring Steelback to the mid lane there and didn't even teleport Cabochard down because look at how good the siege potential this team has. If anybody steps forward from NIP to defend the tower, you get the Equalizer, the Ashe Arrow comes out, and realistically, you're a sitting duck right under your tower, and 5 versus 1 is always going to result in a kill.
Yeah, it just seems like Vitality haven't had to really utilize all this global pressure that they have around because NIP's just sort of been following them a little bit around the map, or at least giving up where they've gotten an advantage and then turning their attention elsewhere. But now it's Vitality throwing their weight around without having to use a lot of those ultimates.
In a controlled fashion as well, Pyra, because look, we looked at the 10 to 15, they didn't lose the lead at all.
All right, no crime here today.
They increased their lead. This was better. They actually took a slight lead, increased it, got a tower. During that, got the Rift Herald, got a tower first blood. This is improvement from Vitality. And this is the kind of thing that, you know, Deficio is starting to talk about, is that Vitality are a team that are on the up right now, and specifically has been around Nukeduck before. This game has been very little about him, and that's a good thing to see, diversity in Vitality's playstyle.
Yeah, it is nice, but on the flip side, we're seeing NIP's growth kind of stall out a little bit here. It seemed like they just never got off to the same start that they were able to against the Unicorns in Week 5. And honestly, I think a big part of it has got to be Prophet right now. He's getting a lot of attention from the enemy team up top, and he's been kind of shut down.
Massive amount of attention to Prophet. Sjokz has been on the back foot and hasn't been able to help Prophet out, and that's one of the things that we saw Prophet do okay despite, is look, Prophet's jungle proximity was lower than the opponent's jungle proximity, so the enemy jungler spent more time around him, and despite that, in week 5, Prophet had a great kills plus assists at 15 against Vizicachi and was up in CSD. This is a guy that was surviving without Sjokz's help last week, and unfortunately, the same can't be said here in week 6.
Yeah, it seems like Vitality really pinpointed the weakness, and Keon shutting it down right now. So they're keeping this gold lead going. It's a very controlled game, absolutely. Like, we thought it was going to be very bloody, but it's only 6 kills, 18 minutes into the game minus.
And we have to look at what else is different, right? Because coming into this, we were saying, hey, Sprattel's Thresh looked great. He was hitting the prediction hooks. He got the Thresh, but he's been neutralized. The Tahm Kench is there to save anybody. We haven't seen Sprattel roaming out of the lane, although now he's lost his tower, he will be a little bit more active. And now NIP want to go with Nagne. Can they get the Weaver's Wall? Nukeduck's on his own.
Oh, Nukeduck is isolated. Everybody's on top of him, and this will be a pickup. Prophet's going to get the kill. What can Vitality get in return here?
Importantly, Vitality used their teleport to try and get to that as well, and actually cancelled it. So, may end up being a benefit for NIP in the next couple of minutes here. If they cannot get Rumble into another fight, that could be very detrimental to this skirmish-focused team. Whereas we said, NIP, if they can get themselves a hook, if they can get into a fight, they still can deal a lot of damage.
Absolutely, but they're going to need a little bit more damage to do it. Prophet, he got that kill in the last engagement, but he's only picked up his Black Cleaver, has a Hex Drinker as well to make sure he didn't die as much in lane. Well, good luck with that one. Anyways, down on the bottom side, you can see Djoko and Cabochard are finishing this tower off. They just are a few steps ahead.
Right, the difficulty is NIP don't have anywhere to respond. You look towards the top lane, and yes, Nagne is pushing, but that's exactly where Nukeduck is going. Nukeduck is going to absorb this wave, and Nagne recognizes he's too far pushed up without any wards in the enemy blue buff area, means he cannot stick around. Unlike Nukeduck, who previously didn't have wards, you can see his vision here, and then NIP just come in for the party.
I have been caught.
It's 5 versus 1, and we spoke about 5v1s earlier on. They tend not to go well.
For the one.
For the one, yeah.
Especially. It was almost 5v2, but yeah, Cabochard, good cancel on that one. Unfortunately for Vitality, they give up 1 kill on that, but they still managed to get a tower out of it. NIP haven't gotten anything in the tower game right now. They haven't been able to secure any objectives on the map, and it just seems like they're a bit sluggish. Wiping the rust off, maybe. Let's see what they can do here as Djoko gets found out by Sprattel, HeaQ, and Sjokz. Still not a whole lot of damage. These guys seem to need some time.
They do. They need more time on this Tristana. They realistically need to get past 3 item point for Tristana. Is when you can really start.
They're really excited for 3 item Tristana.
I know. It's every time we're talking about Tristana.
It's a fantastic champion.
I know, right?
All right. So here's where we're at right now. Right? They got to check in with this. We're 20 minutes. This gold lead is still slowly increasing. It's still creeping upward because Vitality now have 5,000 plus in the lead. They've got the Cloud Drake, so they can go a little faster, they can move around the map, make these rotations, and their vision is kind of strewn all over the NIP jungle. But other than just getting this Tristana to the later stages of the game, like, how can NIP right now shut them down if they're not really overextending minus that Nukeduck play?
It's difficult with catch compositions when the enemy have vision control. The type of vision control you're talking about here, where there's multiple wards in one side of the jungle for Vitality, so they know they don't ever need to go on the other side. As long as they're playing around the Baron like they are, look, the wards that Sjokz has to clear is significant enough. So it is difficult for them to get back into the game. It's going to have to come from Nagne utilizing the Weaver's Wall, Sprattel trying to get that hook. But as you said, if Vitality aren't giving them opportunities, you can't really create those plays with any kind of consistency. And that's very, very difficult for NIP to find an answer to right now.
So it's stop the bleeding. That's the mode that they're playing in right now. And at least HeaQ will be able to continually farm away. He has the static shiv completed, so 1/2 of that recipe.
Realistically, NIP need to be close enough to Baron and Vitality's next objective attempts to defend against it. Not to allow Vitality to just put this Lucian anywhere near Baron, or maybe utilize the Tahm Kench and push it down. Same with the tower, but not so close that you're contesting for a fight at all points in time, because you don't want to fight this Vitality team right now. You are not strong enough to fight it, and that's a very dangerous thing to do. Here comes the Weaver's Wall. Tahm Kench devours over the wall. solves the problem of no flash on Olaf, doesn't really matter, and Vitality now have to back away for another wave, but this onslaught is coming again. They didn't realistically use anything there.
Yeah, and it's a little unfortunate for Nagne. He can't build his wall high enough to really keep out the Tahm Kench from saving anybody over the side. Nukeduck was also able to hop it over, and they can just have their pick of the NIP jungle. And speaking of NIP, they're all stacking around this Baron. It seems like this is what they're fixated on. You got to expect they will be able to realistically react in time should Vitality go for a play here, but that's some time away.
Yeah, it's all about the vision control right now, because the fact that bot tower has died so early leaves such a long lane, and I'm talking about the inner tower of NIPs. It leaves such a long lane, there are no objectives on the bottom half of the map, realistically, once they've taken this dragon, for Vitality to actually secure. So now, Vitality are forced to play topside with control around Baron. And NIP, that means you have to fight that Baron control even more so, because there's nowhere else that Vitality are going to go. It's going to be Ward's top half of the map, try and set up for pick around Baron, and if you overstay too much, maybe Nukeduck pushes bottom lane, but realistically, he's going to have to come across to the team, because if you force a fight, he doesn't have teleport. Vitality cannot afford to fight 4v5.
Yeah. I agree. It's pretty exciting when they're going to get caught like that. Okay, so Vitality, 4 members on the mid. They're going to try to rush this down 5 now with Nukeduck. They might try to commit as much as possible, but no, they realize Sjokz is over the side of the wall. They are playing this out so carefully and so conservatively. They're not giving any chances.
Assuming that Prophet and the communication with the rest of NIP is on point, they know they're not engaging anytime soon. Prophet maintains the push in the bottom lane, actually rushes down to try and push this wave further back away. Try not to allow Nukeduck to come and get anywhere closer. Here comes a Vitality attempt on the side lane. We talked about this.
Voyage, and in comes the Culling Prophet, tanking up every single shot as he has to flash away from the tongue.
But the damage is now done. Flash is down. Next time this happens, maybe you get the kill. We talked about this coming out of Champion Select. It's Nukeduck on the side lane. Vander tries to make the play with Abyssal Voyage. Now they get the flash.
And this is the big issue, right? If you are a Renekton that doesn't come out of the laning phase at least even or ahead, you can't really 1v1 anybody. And this is what Prophet wants to do. We've seen him growing. We've seen him improving. The Prophet that we expected from SKT starting to come out, but in this game, he's been shut down.
Yeah, got camped early game. Vitality transitioned that into a tower kill, now into a mid lane tower kill after getting that flash from Prophet in the bottom lane. So this is the difficulty that we're talking about from NIP. If Vitality play this out carefully and correctly, there aren't many opportunities for NIP's composition to come back, save for these late-game fights. Now, itemization-wise, Tristana is at 2 items, waiting now for the next item. We've seen a lot of rapid-fire cannon being the 3rd item on Tristana. Of course, has fantastic auto-attack range. The later the game goes, scales obviously with her level. Yeah. Plus rapid-fire cannon on top of that.
Well, there's a lot of potential for really going off, but HeaQ is significantly behind Steelback and Gold right now, and that's the difference you can see with the Zeal being picked up as well. So it's still difficult, and you consider the fact that because they have so much extra gold to work with, Vitality, that's a couple of control wards on just about everybody, right? Everybody except Nukeduck. He's a little too lazy to buy him. But they're able to secure all this vision up, and Djoko can just freely go in, clear away the blue trinkets time and time again. Vitality are in no rush to win this game.
No, they're not. They don't realistically have to be either. Although you would like to see teams press their advantage, they are slowly increasing their lead. Getting a tower every couple of minutes now, a dragon when it spawns, Mountain Drake will be next in a few minutes time, but here's the engage.
Ashe arrow, but the Lantern is going to get shook out. Meanwhile, HeaQ was on the other side of the wall, but he is safe enough to his teammates.
And on this exchange, what you're trying to do is you're trying to trade the Ashe arrow cooldown for the Renekton teleport cooldown. You want that exchange to go in your favor, because Vitality, look at their comp. They can just say, no, we don't actually want this fight anymore as soon as that teleport starts, and that's why they didn't fully commit. Prophet didn't commit either, though, and that teleport didn't get used. I mean, Steelback's going to have to wait for the next arrow to come up for Vitality to try and make the same play again.
Holding the nerve, and yeah, you can see what NIP have their eggs in which basket this game. It's all the Tristana trying to do the damage, but it's really just been when they've tried to beat them back from these towers that HeaQ's even had a chance where they still keep people on the side lanes.
And while Tristana does have a decent laning phase as well, that's quite a decent amount of damage coming out from HeaQ in comparison. You look at a Cabochard that was camped at 4 in the top lane on a Rumble that typically outputs this massive amount
all
of
that damage pretty much on Prophet.
But we also haven't had a massive number of skirmishes and team fights. Here's the play again. Talked about it Flash is down. Lantern is there.
All right, there we go. So they are able to keep him safe.
Ooh,
And meanwhile, Nukeduck's had to flash into the pit, and Sjokz comes out of nowhere. They found a pick onto the Vitality mid laner.
We spoke a little bit about how Vitality are going to be playing around top side. That's where a lot of their objective attempts are going to be. Well, while Vitality were playing bottom side, trying to get that Abyssal Voyage, working around killing Prophet, Nukeduck pushes up. Why was he that far up? Look at where
That's
the
the second time this game, too.
Look at the map. Look at how few blue wards are in the area that Nukeduck just died in. Like, maybe they swept them out just as it happened or before. We'll look at it in real time now.
Oh, he has no
Nukeduck,
idea.
No wards. Oh, he even face checks into it. That's painful.
Yep.
That's painful.
Gets popped up and around, burns his flash, into the Baron pit he goes, and it's all clean up.
Flashing and then the Rek'sai ults, that's also painful. That does not end well.
But that was critical, though, for Nagne and Sjokz picking up a little extra gold for the team, making sure that that side of the map is going to be a little more dark now. This is the kind of mistake that Vitality can give up leads with. It's what you were talking about earlier in the game.
And this, you've got to, once again, look at NIP and credit them because, look, Sprattel covers for Prophet on the bottom side with the Lantern, gets him out. Then they say, okay, well, we've seen Nukeduck top side. Let's just go kill him because they just used Tahm Kench ult. They just used their Ashe arrow maybe 30 or 40 seconds before. It's unlikely to be available, so yeah, let's just kill Nukeduck while he's out on the side. I like seeing these improvements out of NIP. They're still able to react despite being so far behind.
Yep, not just playing for the early game. We are well and truly into the mid, getting towards that late, but Vitality, 4 members now, make that 5 members all together on the Baron, looking to bait this one out. They might just start it. NIP are scattered across the map.
Yeah, this is difficult here, though, because, look, there's 2 teleport wards behind Vitality that Prophet could look to teleport to. Of course, Cabochard is already with the rest of the team, so it would be a 5 versus 5. But you then got to deal with Nagne's wall, the ability to try and steal from Sjokz. It's always easier to steal from this side, especially on a Rek'sai. Blast Cone was used.
All right, they started off the Baron. It looked a little half-hearted, but now they're going all in for it here. Not the fastest Baron at the moment, but 29 minutes in. We'll see if NIP can react in time. Everybody but Prophet is come to the party. Will he be TPing in? Does he hold his nerve? Vitality peel off.
Yeah, they peel off because they know that, again, they're trying to get this teleport out of Prophet, trying to make sure that they have control of the side lanes. Vitality didn't take a massive amount of damage on that exchange and recognized that, okay, Mountain Drake is a lot easier to take now. They could have tried to rush that down, but then you risk a 50-50 smite against the Rek'sai. You could end up losing it. Vitality, again, trying to play this game out very carefully.
Yeah, it's such a cat and mouse game right now. It's so tense because Vitality just keep trying to bait out the summoner spells, but that mouse ain't clicking teleport.
Not at this point, anyway, as one of the things we're going to see that is difficult for NIP to punish too much. So Nukeduck going topside has been punished twice, right? But that tower still stands behind it because he shoves the wave so far out first that it's difficult for NIP to start taking that top lane tower because every time the minion wave comes up to the halfway point, someone pushes it back out. So NIP are only really getting gold generation from the minion waves that they're catching in lane, and it's not as much as they would really be liking right now.
Yeah, same thing's happening on the bot because Prophet just pushes the wave and all of a sudden Vitality start moving members towards the bottom side. Of course, that was also to get the Mountain Drake. So it's just kind of this ebb and flow back and forth. But at the same time, Vitality don't have any more towers to get.
Right.
So they're not able to push that gold advantage shy of getting a few kills, and you can see why the gold game is kind of stalled out at 5.5.
Yeah, and that's the difficulty here, because they can't really swap Prophet out of the bottom lane, but Prophet's been playing well around the Tahm Kench.
You know, I misspoke about one thing, though, Stress.
Okay.
NIP are getting a lot of gold off clearing those wards.
That is true. Well, may not be true, but
it's all done. Vitality are trying to give to charity here right now, right? Like NIP, they're a little down in gold, they're down in their luck. It's take a little bit, take a little bit.
But look, they can't swap Prophet to the top side because then you teleport users on the wrong side. So Prophet has to remain on the bottom side, but play safely around the Abyssal Voyage. So he's in a catch-22 position where NIP can't try and get back into the lead despite Vitality not doing anything, because anytime they overextend, they're going to get caught on that bottom lane. And the same, Nagne wants to be close enough to be able to use the Weaver's Wall to try and catch out anybody from Vitality that overextends.
Yeah, I was about to say, it seems like we're in a bit of a holding pattern, but all of a sudden, Prophet face checks into Nukeduck, and HeaQ face checks into the rest of the team. He pulls himself into the arrow, and Steelback gets the kill. Vitality smell the blood, and they're going all in. Prophet, that's a big croc, but Vitality are bigger. Steelback flashing forward, that's the aggro we like to see. And Nukeduck going into the base, and NIP scrambling back. Triple kill for Steelback, Nukeduck over the wall, a full channel culling, and Vitality flipped that switch.
Vitality with a good catch on the fight. They managed to get HeaQ as he moves through the river bush, then just connect with the arrow. Steelback probably wasn't expecting to get the AD carry there, but HeaQ takes the Lantern, aims it at the Thresh, maybe intentional out of Steelback. Let's give him a little bit of credit for it. Knows that he's likely to get it if that Lantern gets taken, and Vitality, 3 kills, tower in the middle lane, inhibitor and the Baron. That realistically has put this game so heavily in their favor now. That's a 10,000 gold lead just about.
All right, well, it was holding for just a second, but an ill-fated pair of face checks, and HeaQ goes too far forward.
So, does Steelback fire the arrow before the Lantern is out? No. Okay, he waits, fires it at the Thresh. I'm going to call that intentional. HeaQ actually was better off flashing or rocket jumping to the right and trying to buy a little bit more time. And from there, numbers game is in the Vitality team's favor right here. They just march it right through the base. And Vitality, that was what they needed. They finally managed to find that mistake from Ninjas in Pyjamas to put the game heavily in their favor.
And you can see in that fight that there was no chance for HeaQ to do a damn thing as he got locked up and taken down. But you know, everybody kind of stepped up to the plate there for Vitality as soon as they realized they had an opening. It was Nukeduck, it was Steelback, Djoko, and everybody was just kind of there at the right place at the right time. So now it's the end game for Vitality. Realistically, they should be able to just shove this one in with the gold advantage they've got.
Yeah, look, Prophet's still on the bottom lane. He's like, guys, I'm getting bot out of tower. It's okay. 33 minutes.
Hey, he did it. All right, one objective. No perfect game, or at least perfect objective game for Vitality.
He's like, it's okay if you hold them top side. I'm getting more towers.
I've seen this before in solo queue.
Well, Vitality are going to get more towers here. Prophet isn't going to be able to
That's
do
usually
that.
when you start flaming your top lane.
Even if Prophet's here, they still get this tower. Realistically, there's no true way of NIP getting this fight without a good flank, and HeaQ, you can see he's putting himself in a dangerous situation.
It already happened once before. He needs to stay alive, but Djoko running right into the back line, looking for Nagne as they throw down the equalizer right behind the rest of NIP, who are scattered to the winds right now. Ashe are landing onto Prophet. HeaQ's able to pick one up off a Buster Shot combo, but Sjokz gonna fall down to Steelback at the end of the day. Flashing forward, it's Nukeduck taking down Prophet. Only HeaQ and Sprattel trying to save the base, but it looks like it is all over in game number 1. Vitality too strong together. Nagne is back up here for the defense. We'll see if they can manage it.
No, Vitality at this point, with only one Nexus tower left to take down, likely to push this down. Nukeduck flayed back.
But they take down Sprattel, and that's going to be it. All of a sudden, there are no more defenders as Nagne hopping back, not in time. Onto the fountain goes HeaQ, but the Nexus is laid bare, and 35 minutes in, Vitality close out game 1.
One death on the scoreboard for Steelback right at the end.
That's
6 kills.
That's what you got to see, though. When he doesn't die, something else goes wrong. The damage percentage not there. That was the aggressive Steelback. He flipped it on at the end with the rest of the team.
And realistically, I like what Vitality brought to the table. The composition, the way that they were playing slowly. Okay, it's not the most exciting game, but they were waiting for a mistake from Ninjas in Pyjamas. They were trying to, you know, cross the T's, dot the I's, get the Tahm Kench working for them, and finally they get a catch in the middle lane, and it basically wins the game for them.
Yeah, and that's smart League of Legends, right? Like so many teams, if you look at a team like NIP, despite all the growth we've been talking about, you look at them, they haven't had a series win. They're down in the standings all the way at the bottom. And it's so easy if you are a team, even like Vitality, who's not much better off, to just disrespect them. But instead, Vitality played to their win condition, didn't give Prophet a chance to get ahead in the lane phase, didn't give NIP any chance at all to really make any serious plays.
And we need to see the NIP from the Unicorn series come back, give us more early game, try and get Sjokz into the game and Prophet.
We have at least one more chance, but Vitality have started the series off with a win, so let's leave it to Sjokz and Deficio for the full story.
Thank you very much, Pyra. I have a man next to me who is very excited to see what Vitality could bring to the table. So I'd like to kind of break down the analysis in 3 parts. 2 things that they did very well, and 1 thing that wasn't so good. So let's start with the good. I think the early game was something that was also completely from their initiative, from Vitality. They had the right initiative. They made Djoko made the early moves, and they got themselves the advantage.
Exactly. Djoko is always a guy we're looking at. Sometimes it's because of some bad plays, and sometimes because of some good plays. In this game here, he gets his comfort pick in Olaf. He's super active in the early game, especially around the top lane. This was the first setup. He even gets shook right after as well. Obviously, here Prophet goes in, ends up dying so quick quickly, he didn't even get to use his flash, and Djoko just continues ganking.
Well, NIP was, last week, they were ahead of 15 in 4 out of their 5 games, so that's definitely something to shut down, because it's almost their only window into the game.
Exactly. I actually think the way you just avoid losing to NIP is by keeping Sjokz down, because he's the man who's always looking to do what Djoko is doing in this game, like be very active in terms of early ganks, and that's kind of how NIP gets these leads. When you then outperform the enemy jungler, like we see here, NIP suddenly don't really have a fallback plan, because it's like Prof is not going to win his lane on his own, Nagne the same, bot lane the same. They need Sjokz. But this time around, Djoko actually knew exactly where Sjokz would be every time.
Quick question. Obviously, you say he knew where he would be, so he probably studied his paths or whatnot, or he had the right intuition to do that. What if those first ganks don't pay off for Djoko? What's another way for him to stay in the early game?
I mean, that's kind of the problem when you play Olaf, is if you do not succeed in the early game, your champion really falls off. But that's obviously the trade-off. You're so strong early on that you should be getting the advantages. And just to go back to the reading part, like, there was a Renekton on the other team. Very common, the enemy jungler will go to his lane and try and gank for the Renekton against a Rumble who's just pushing, pushing, pushing. That's why Djoko was there in the first place and got that counter gank. So he obviously took a risk by picking the Olaf, to say, I need to have a good early game, but I believe I can get it. And then he obviously showed that he could actually get that early advantage.
So he delivered on that, and the team was doing quite well. But then we come into the mid-game to have a 5-6K gold lead. And you were talking about something very interesting during the game, the fact that European teams tend to try to go for that 1-3-1, whilst NA teams sometimes go for the 1-4, which is easier to execute, but a better game plan in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so quick explanation on these numbers here, because we say them a lot, but we don't often actually really break down what exactly they mean. The 1-3-1 is the split push style, where you have 2 guys in, of course, the side lane split pushing, 1 on top side. Then you have 3 guys in the mid lane, often the support, the AD carry, and the jungler. And then you have the other one, you know, down at the opposite side lane compared to the guy on top side. The 1-4 that North America are using very often is where you have only 1 guy split pushing, who is a guy with teleport, the top laner, and then you have 4 members very often grouping in mid lane and try and force a fight, try and force an engage.
So I say easier, but actually it's just a more straightforward game plan.
Exactly, it's more straight, it's easier to learn, I feel like. You just need to bring some engage with your team, and then when you're pushing forward as 4, if you see the enemy, try and fight them, otherwise take their jungle, take the dragon, take the baron, whatever it is, because you have the 4 members very strong there. But Vitality tried the 1-3-1 where you got to coordinate all 3 lanes. Did
Is that
backfire.
why it became so slow and they just didn't push their advantage?
It did, yeah, exactly, because one side would push forward, and they would try and fight on that side, and then Nukeduck would get caught on the other side, or they wouldn't really coordinate where we're playing exactly. The vision kind of fell apart, and they were waiting for Baron for a long time. But luckily for them...
I was going to say, we come into the 3rd phase, which was, again, good by Vitality, because they managed to win the game, but NIP gave them somewhat of a gift. We're going to take a look at the replay, which is a bit frustrating because you're not winning through exactly playing the right thing, but they do capitalize on what was given to them.
Exactly, like HeaQ starts off this whole thing by being very greedy for a ward, and then he ends up getting caught out, has to, you know, get over the wall, ends up then jumping right into an Ashe arrow that was well placed by Steelback, and that obviously starts the entire fight for Vitality. But
flashing forward.
He's flashing forward, he's playing aggressive, he's getting kills. He got 3 kills in this one, so we get to see the late game performance from him on the Ashe here. This is just my one problem with a lot of the teams in Europe, is when the enemy team is actually failing to execute their like split push, and you're technically getting time to scale it. You're getting, you know, to 31, 32 minutes despite being down 5-6K gold. You can't make that mistake where then your AD carry is like, is that a control ward right there? I'm going to go kill that control ward because the enemy team is just right in front of me. And you actually end up, in that case for NIP, kind of gifting Vitality a fight that they didn't get you know, a win from and a Baron, and then suddenly the game is over. So that comeback mechanic that NIP could have been looking for, because Vitality were struggling to close it out, you kind of just throw it on the ground when you make a mistake like this, and you get punished.
Obviously, that from NIP, not a good move. It allows Vitality to completely end the game, but we were in a deserving spot to take it, I believe. So are you still as optimistic as you were before we get into Game 2 about Vitality?
I mean, I'm hyped about Vitality, especially when they play against the other bottom teams, because I think they are just a step above them, and I think we saw that in this game as well. Obviously, there are still a few things they're working on, but I know Yamato Cannon is a big fan of the 1-3-1 split push, so he will for sure sit and talk to the team right now about the few issues they had, how do they fix them for next game, and yes, I am still hyped
I'll
about
be
Vitality.
hyped with you if they clean it out 2-0.
They will,
so
2-0 Vitality.
Well, Vitality just 1 win away from taking the series against Ninjas in Pyjamas. We will be right back for round 2 after this.
know that Djoko is here, though.
Both junglers on. They look for Cabochard. There's a stun up, and in comes Djoko. Can they finish the job? But it's first blood. Prophet goes down.
Thresh is not 6 yet. We are strong now.
I'm dead too, I think.
Yeah.
With that. Where did Renekton come from?
TP, I think.
Renekton TP, yeah.
They got TP.
Well, Nukeduck's had to flash into the pit, and Sjokz comes out of nowhere. They found a pick onto the Vitality mid laner. All of a sudden, Prophet face checks into Nukeduck, and HeaQ face checks into the rest of the team. He pulls himself into the arrow, and Steelback gets the kill. Vitality smell the blood, and they're going all in. Prophet, that's a big croc, but Vitality are bigger. Not in time, onto the fountain goes HeaQ, but the Nexus is laid bare, and 35 minutes in, Vitality close out game 1.